Welcome to the WOW Empress Code intentional journal readings, where it's all about really aligning with your true dominion destiny for this now phase and really unlocking your life codes to discover how to move forward in the present. So my motto for this initiative is really about helping others to understand that your new now destiny codes aren't found in the stars or in the cards, found in your life codes. And I always like to preface these sessions by sharing that you can begin decoding and recoding your life to really create your highest level destiny trajectory through a simple practice of intentional journaling. And this practice normally provides prompts and triggers to extract your divine encoding so that it brings forth your own information about your true life's design and mission, and particularly for this phase. And I am the WOW Empress, AliNICOLE WOW, and today I am extremely delighted to be working with my STAR Queen Celebrity-preneur Protégé, Gina Gardiner, and we're going to be working in a mini VIP day intensive format, and this is really a co-creative planning session where we're going to be focusing on the development of two new platforms, and they're really twin empire platforms, and these are going to be for empowered profitable empaths. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the co-creative process of this session will bring forth, and also what the next levels are for unlocking more of Gina's divine destiny codes to expand her mission. So Gina, thank you so much for being here for this experience and actually sharing it with the public so that they can benefit.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure and a great honor. And it's just such an important theme, particularly at this time. So I'm very happy to share.
Oh, I am so grateful that you were happy to share. You're always very passionate about what you do. And I actually want to talk a little bit about that before we get started. And I sort of set the tone of what we're going to be exploring, in this session. I would love for you to share just a little bit about your passion, especially during this time, to provide works and opportunities for empaths to become more empowered and really lead their lives in a more profitable way.
I believe that we are at a watershed. The human race is at a watershed, that there are so many things going on which are destructive. And I believe that empaths have a huge part to play in taking things from where they are to doing things differently, but doing that with courage and with heart. I've worked with empaths along the years, sometimes by happen chance, sometimes friends, sometimes clients. And I recognize how often empaths are playing small, holding themselves back because they've got baggage that hasn't been dealt with, that they've got beliefs which limit them in every area of their life. But I also believe that they have a huge purpose, and that purpose is to help the human race and the planet not only survive, but to thrive and to make a really positive difference. And empaths, I believe, have the power to be the leader of leaders, to light the way. We've talked a lot about the fact that time is of the essence. It's not something that people can dilly-dally about. There's been too much delay. Right. And I am passionate about helping empaths step into their true potential, which is so much bigger than they could ever imagine, and helping them along their way to be able to help many, many others.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on the note of that, to help several, it's important that they do step more into the holistic profit space, but also being able to embody and embrace the fact that they are here to be symbols of higher prosperity, which involves the profits, because in order to reach the masses and expand the work, there are resources that they need to have in order to do that. And these resources aren't just in, some of the uncommon ways that, I've taught, throughout the years, because there's many ways to be resourceful in uncommon ways, but there comes a time where it does have to be about the profitability. And that has been an area in which several empaths have struggled in, from the financial aspect, of that level of the profits. And so being able to empower empaths during this time to not only embrace being holistically profitable, but also not being afraid to own the higher profitability. And so I'm looking forward to how these platforms and the development of this, will unfold. But before we start getting into that, and I share a little bit about also how this process is going to work today, did you want to speak to that, any of the importance, even like for yourself, why do you feel that it's actually important to be profitable? Because you have a training hub that's not just specifically geared for empaths, but it does have work, for empaths. You have two leading training hubs, but one is specifically focused on the enlightenment of profitable leaders. And so there's a reason why that has been developed specifically for times such as these, and just being able to express the importance of being able to not just have the holistic profits, but actually be able to have the financial aspect of that as well.
Thank you. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity. I believe that empaths, when they step into their purpose, are in fact leaders. And yes. So the principles are the same, whether you are directing this to an empath or to a business leader. Because in a sense, the only way that empaths are going to really reach the numbers of people that they want to do is to see themselves as business leaders. You can't, it's very, I would think, impossible to reach large numbers of people unless you have the organization at the background of a business. And I think so many empaths have been led to believe that talking about money, that expecting to be paid for the value that you offer is in some way wrong, that anything spiritual needs to be free. And I think that's a myth that needs to be busted.
Absolutely.
It's at a number of levels. One is that by owning your own worth, you are modeling that for other people. And I think many empaths and those who purport to be spiritual think that it's all right to support other people to become abundant in every sense of the word, but they don't model it for themselves. They have almost a mean mentality when it comes to money, because it's in some way seen to be dirty, not quite right. It's not spiritual. And I think that they do themselves and their clients a disservice.
Absolutely.
Also, I think that we need to spread the word, and we need to spread it quickly. And to do that, it's so much easier when you have technological resources at your disposal, other people who have skills and expertise that you want to pay well because you want to reward people for their worth. Yes. Then that takes money. And I think we need to be modeling that we live an abundant life in every aspect. Now, that's not a profligate life. It's not a life that, we're not talking about I'm making money out of you and you're not getting value.
Right.
And I think that for me, it all comes down to what value are you offering? What value do you put on that gift that you're giving to people? And what value do we put on yourself? And many empaths don't value themselves and they don't value their gift enough.
That is very true and very well stated. And of course, I agree and co-sign with everything that you said. And of course, over the time that you've been working with me, because in what I do in the empathic space is in a new definition format, but also helping empaths to understand that they are actually hardwired for high-end service and high-end work in a new format. And so that's the very nature of our encoding. And so being able to help them transition into these higher levels of living and being able to do that higher, lighter, and more lucrative work so that there is the divine right exchange for what they're putting out, because there's the limitations around the empathic journey. And the empathic journey it has a duality to it. It's beautiful and it's brutal,
Yeah.
and if we don't allow to be compensated holistically for the journey that is being, in some cases, at times endured, in a sense, with having these special, unique superpowers, if you will, and capabilities, that the refinement of this particular journey within itself has another strand of value. And so when you take that value of the journey that is definitely different and unique than the average individual, even who is highly skilled, and then you start to marry the profits, the price point, with that experience, there is no way that you can't create a high-end experience. It's because it wouldn't be the divine right value exchange. And so the whole overarching goal, I believe, in terms of what's going to come through with what you're bringing on through these platforms, is the opportunity for them to be empowered to live out from this new premise, a new foundation. Is that there has to be the understanding, there has to be the awareness around this, and then not to just jump people straight into something that they are not used to and accustomed to. But that's where the publications that we're going to focus on today during this time will be able to help take an empath step by step in these different levels of empowerment, so leading up to what these higher level services are, for them to be able to have that divine right value exchange. So on that note, I want to just share a little bit how this process works for this particular session here. Is that I will get present with the intentional journal style publications, and I'm going to have Gina in just a moment to be able to show those. And I'm going to see if there's any initial insights that come up. And often, sometimes, we already have sort of a core theme, a premise that we're working from today, but sometimes there'll be another one. And so as that's happening, I will either have Gina to open up and read something that jumps out for her, or it could be that I ask her to just be present and sit with the energy of the publication and then translate the feeling, or what I call a sense of a trigger, so to speak, which is just another prompt. And then I will be able to bring forth the evolutionary insights and expanded awareness, really for the right now relevance of how to move forward. So today, we're going to be actually focusing on the development of two their platforms. And the way I want to explain them is that they're more of educational training hubs, so to speak, but not in the bigger format, in the context in which Gina has produced some actual bigger training hubs. And there's going to be actually information and links to those websites below, and also other information about her and publications that that she has for Empaths. But these are really segues into the bigger expanded training hubs that she has. And in this case, we're going to be talking more about the Enlightened Profitable Leadership Training Hub. That's the one of your bigger ones, right, Gina?
It is indeed, yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so these are going to be perfect segues to level up emerging empowered empaths, to be able to participate at a grander level, which is only going to expand their leadership and help them be able to merge the leadership and the entrepreneurial aspect to be a leaderpreneur. But it starts here in what's going to be taking place. So two platforms that are emerging and will be developing today are the emerging, empowered, profitable empath. And then the second one is the right, W-R-I-T-E, way to become an empowered, profitable empath. So today, the journals that we will be working with, again, they're journal style publications, and I'll have Gina to hold them up as I call them out. So these three that I'm going to be sharing first are actually authored by Gina, and the first one is Harnessing the Power of Being an Empath. It's a self-exploration and empathic empowerment guide for tapping into your limitless potential. And the second one is Stepping into Your Genuine Power as an Empath. And this is a 30-day intensive boot camp workbook to expand and accelerate your journey as an empath. And then we have the next one, which is Accelerate Your Empathic Potential, Discovering New Levels of Your Limitless Purpose as an Empathic Leader. And this is a self-assessment action planner. So we're getting them in position here, powering them up to accelerate. And the next two are authored by me, and one of them also Gina has co-authored. But the next one is Red Root Riches for Empathic Entrepreneurs. And it is the basics of new dimensional root chakra healing for grounding your financial success and more. And it's a journal prompt planner. And then we have the next one. It is Harnessing Your Empathic Profitable Phoenixpreneur Power, Rising in New Levels of Your Entrepreneurial Empowerment and Profit Potential for High-End Success. And this is actually a customized mini course creation planner. So we're going to be leveraging, this one as well. And so we have another one that we're going to be using, and this is authored by Gina, and it is Sharing Your Empathic Journey the Right, W-R-I-T-E, way, how to use your experience to serve in your higher purpose, leveraging writing and publishing. And then we have another one, which we don't have this one available in terms of being able to show it today, but we'll be referencing it just in the PDF format. So this one is called Highly Sensitive to High End, the Right, W-R-I-T-E, way. And it is the art of becoming an empathic entrepreneur and building a high-end empire. And it actually is a VIP day intensive workspace planner. And so before we actually move forward, I want to actually talk about this particular one because this was really the start, in a sense, of everything in terms of Gina starting to build out her empathic empires, because she's actually been working with empaths, as she mentioned, for years, some as nonlinear clients, being friends, but also her actual clients. But prior to a masterclass that she actually hosted for me, that I facilitated, and also too with another one of our colleagues and great friends who does a lot of work with us in terms of the empathic community. And we provided this masterclass, and it was actually called Highly Sensitive to High End, the Right, W-R-I-T-E, way. And so I ended up transcribing some time ago that particular publication, that masterclass, into a publication format, and actually created a twin version of it too that doesn't necessarily focus on the writing aspect as much, but just helping individuals, empaths, to understand that, use their high sensitivity to create high-end empires. And so in me bringing this up is that from Gina facilitating or hosting and going through the process of the masterclass herself and participating and contributing within that process, is that it then began to awaken her, to, yes, I have been serving, empaths. And then I mentioned to her that she needed to consider creating a publication, and I kind of starting a new niche focus with that, because what I got a sense from her was she was extremely passionate. She actually liked working with empaths, and that actually sometimes is a rarity because there's a lot that comes with working with empaths, or a particular breed of empaths, I should say. And we talk a lot about this in the joys and pains of working with empaths. um, but when I could just feel that this is going to be something, really expansive for her, and just her passion about it. Like I said, was just it's just incredible, because I found a rare energy, around, just the very nature of what, she was expressing in terms of liking that. And when she started to write this particular, the first publication, which is harnessing the power of being an empath. That's the first one, right? That you wrote.
Yeah.
Yes. She said that she found that to just flow so easily to write that. Is that correct, Gina? If I remember that?
The book felt as if it was writing itself.
It's exactly right. And so from there, then we began to create a platform for that, other publications, and then starting to develop the higher level work, and actually her bringing out more of her empathic gift to showcase in her leadership and make it known that she is an empath and is here to help other empaths. But then there's the juncture of really now how to become more profitable in the holistic way, but also being able to now step more fully into our own true value in this area too, and then be able to obviously champion, to be able to champion others. So does that sound about right?
It certainly does, yes.
Okay, great. So now that we have sort of set the premise and shared the publications, let's take a few deep breaths before we get started with this process. So I'm going to invite you, Gina, to take about 5 deep breaths, please.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful, beautiful. So since we're going to be focusing on these two platforms, and we'll see what else comes up, because one of the things about being in the space is that there's so much potential for so much, so much more knowledge and wisdom to come forth. And so we'll definitely be present with whatever, aspects or jumping out that we need to do some decoding to recoding, around, and being able to, start the expansion process. So I want to just restate the platforms and share initially some things that came up, Gina, in terms of how to sort of jumpstart. And then again, we can be present with the journals and maybe gain some more insight around other developing core focuses or triggers to lay a foundation for some of the emerging things. So, are you ready?
Ready? Raring to go.
Okay, awesome. So the first platform is, the emerging empowered profitable empath. And these are going to be platforms that will be developed on Tumblr. And Gina has created several Tumblr platforms. They're really annex mini training hubs, in a sense, again, that can lead into some of her bigger her bigger training hubs, or just other, initiatives and speaking engagements and some other, let's say, opportunities that maybe she doesn't have listed on a particular site, or they're just customized opportunities for this particular initiative. So Gina, what I'm thinking is that because within the characters for URLs, I think you can't go past 32 or so.
That's right. Yes, it is quite limited.
Yes, and so maybe using a URL like Empowered Profitable Empath.
Yeah.
And then just the title of the actual platform, will be the Emerging Empowered Profitable Empath.
Yeah.
And then the second platform, the right, WRITE way to become an empowered, profitable empath. We probably can go with something like become a profitable empath right now. Something like that. You just maybe have to play around with what the URL could be, because I'm sure the right way to become.
I think that's going to be too long. So
yeah, or it could be right way to become a profitable empath. Maybe that could be. Maybe that one won't be too long, but it's just something that you just play around, and that's within this time today. We're going to be doing some exploration and co-creative planning in a sense, just to sort of develop a template in a sense to be able to work with. So some initial insights that came up was about you actually being able to develop 2 mini talks around these formats or concepts, so to speak, and actually preparing them as if you were going to do another Think Network talk, because you just, recently had the Think Network, opportunity. And what this will do is that these mini talks will then lead into the opportunity to share about the publications, and also a process that takes them through the publications. And we'll talk about being able to do some creative processes, around that. And so something that came up also about first offerings will be really about taking empaths through this empowerment journey and leveling them up to become profitable, but then also helping them to create their own mini course to share with the world. And when I go back and go over kind of what the publications will be for each one, it will make more sense. Then the second platform will be about helping them to go through that same empowerment process, but actually being able to set up profitable writing empires. So again, we'll get present with the journals to gain more insight and see, what comes up for either the mini talks or just really how to formulate the opportunity. So before we actually start kind of being present with the journals, and actually before that having some conversation and some dialogue, let me just share the publications that are going to be used for the first platform or the first process. So we're going to be, for this particular initiative, it will be harnessing the power of being an empath, stepping into your genuine power as an empath, and accelerate your empathic potential. And then also the Red Root Riches for empathic entrepreneurs, and then the harnessing your empathic profitable phoenixpreneur power. So let me just talk about this for a moment, because I get the sense you're already seeing kind of where this is going and the sense that it will make. But I just want to expound upon this a little bit more, why these particular publications are going to be best leveraged. So when we're talking about an emerging, empowered, profitable empath, or just an empowered empath, in general. This is someone who may be aware that they're an empath, but they are not empowered. And even if they are, not enough to really be able to be grounding it enough to leverage it where it's making a meaningful difference, within their lives. But then you do have the ones who are um, empowered in a sense, but then they really need um, the next level or the permission or invitation to be courageous with being able to demonstrate this power and live it out. So the first three publications are really about them going through that process, being able to harness the awareness of the power of being an empath and being able to go on that self-exploration, journey into understanding themselves and the new levels of empowerment that comes with being an empath. But then we know that that's just a level, right? Gina, right? That's just a level. It's really just an entry level in a sense. And then, like anything, there's always the next level. So that's when they'll be stepping more into their genuine power because by going through that publication and the nature of the process that you'll take them through, just according to that particular premise, is that they're going to find more of their authentic voice and truth for that specific phase, which will then give them more of that genuine power to access. And so, going through that process. And then there's the call to acceleration. It's now we have to take what we've harnessed, take the next level of what you've stepped into, and now let's catapult this, let's accelerate this, and see what the next level is for them to lead with this and first have found their purpose for that moment. And so I'm just getting excited, just going through this, just building up to this is exciting. So I want to talk about the purpose of the red root riches. And of course, because we are providing this where this experience is open to the general public so that they can get kind of an understanding of why these particular resources will be leveraged. So we talked about how empaths struggle with finances often and don't feel valuable enough to be charging, as Gina mentioned about the spiritual connection and feeling that it's wrong and just not allowing themselves to be honored for the divine right value exchange. Well, what happens is that we have an energy body, and it consists of what is normally referred to as the ladder of seven in the sense within, and it's really a wheel of energy that's within you. And without getting too deep into the anatomy of this, is that the root chakra is primarily known as that place where security is first built and established, and it has a lot to do with the financial security and just the survival of life. And so often there's trauma and different things that empaths have gone through or they've inherited. And a lot of that debris, in a sense, is kind of stored, within that chakra. But that chakra, because it's the root, it needs to be anchored and established and really to be a secure container to hold all the new levels of what wants to emerge. So it's really important that healing work and well-being is done within that particular chakra. And so that's why this comes in to be able to provide that opportunity for them to actually get into a new level and a new dimension of understanding how to heal it and start setting themselves up to be grounded for the financial success and so much more. And so once they have sort of, anchored that and got grounded and rooted, then they're able to maximize all of what has come before in terms of the harnessing, the stepping, and the acceleration. It's all really grounded and rooted. And now they can come into the next phase of harnessing the empathic power, but now in this more profitable leadership way, a more profitable entrepreneurial way, really using the phoenix energy to really rise, because that's what it will be. It's them really rising in their new levels of power and being able to now be these high-end expressions. And so as this particular, the publication that we'll be leveraging around this, as I mentioned, is about a customized mini course creation planner. And so this, as Gina takes them through this process, it is really leading up for them to now take their experience of what they've learned and discovered for their their next level of purpose and potential, and now being able to put this into a mini course that they develop for themselves, and then ultimately be able to turn around and actually share that with the world. So before we move into the second one, Gina, how does that feel?
There is a rightness to the process.
Yes.
Building on, we've often talked about the best self of today is the foundation of the best self for tomorrow, and so on. And that's what this does. It gives people a foundation, and then build on that foundation to the point where you're actually able to fly.
Absolutely, absolutely, and be able to give a contribution to the world. And that's something that we highly promote, is that empaths need to actually be also empowering other empaths. And I actually, have platforms, around that, and works of, empaths leading empaths, and being able to have more of them step up into facilitating experiences for empaths, and not just going through life, well, I'm an empath, and yes, that may be known, but what are your contributions to other empaths? Because there's a very unique journey and a unique breed of individuals. And so we kind of need all hands on deck of ones who have become more mature to be able to facilitate this. This is no different, Gina, in a sense, than you'd already been, like, as you mentioned, serving empaths on different levels. But then there came the point where, but you needed to actually embody this as a way to actually serve and make it known to others, instead of just people who come through to you and they just happen to be empathic, but making opportunities available for other empaths to gravitate to this experience, and then be able to start leveraging their own experiences, for contributions to the world, because sometimes they don't think that that's what they're here to do. And not saying that's their overall arching premise, but they need to have at least some type of contribution to the empathic community, whether it is through a publication, whether it is through a platform. They may not do coaching or any of that, but they'll discover what their true purpose is in being in the world, but also too, what are their contributions, or a contribution to, to the empathic community. So I know that makes sense to you.
I think when I look back at the empaths that I've worked with, without exception, they have all had a sense that they are here to make a positive difference in the world.
Yes.
But if I use the metaphor of light, they're working, and it's almost as if they're at the level of the firefly. That unless you're very, very close to it, and it's very, there is that immediate connection, you wouldn't see the light.
Right.
And what we're talking about is people being, the biggest sort of lighthouse, where your light is shining far and wide and encompassing the many. And that, for me, is the difference, is that, yes, you can make a difference, and that difference is important.
Yes,
it's
definitely.
Such a tiny scale, when the job is so big, and there are so many people who need help, and so there's such a need for people to see the light.
Yes.
you're not going to be able to do anything as a firefly,
right.
but as a lighthouse with a huge
Can be more illuminate.
capacity to
Mm-hmm.
illuminate the stormy seas. People will gravitate towards that and have a sense of safety and security that
Yes.
otherwise they couldn't have had.
They couldn't, absolutely. I think that was the perfect the perfect metaphor to leverage, or analogy, so to speak. And also, Gina, I'm feeling that actually is a premise to actually lead from too. So just, I know this is recorded in a sense, but your note taking, so jot that down, is to leverage that analogy of, you're not here to be just a firefly. You're here to be a phoenix. You're here to be blazing, and to be illuminate, where you can be this lighthouse effect, in a sense, where they can see the fire in the skies, or the fire, so we'll play around with that, and we'll actually see too if any wisdom or so, comes up from, from the journal readings and everything. But before I actually move into talking about the second platform and the premise, is there anything else you want to share around this, or do I just go ahead and move on? Then we just have more conversation and then see where the journals take us?
I think let's move on. I think it'll come out of the journals.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll do that. So the second platform, which is, all about this right way, to become an empowered, profitable empath. So the publications that will be used and leveraged for this particular one are going to be still the first three that were mentioned for the first platform, and that is the harnessing the power of being an empath, the stepping into your genuine power as an empath, and then the accelerate your empathic potential. But because this particular one is going to focus more on the writing aspect from an imperial perspective, in a sense. So now that there's been the harnessing, the stepping more fully into the power, and now the acceleration part, knowing now what that premise is for one's limitless potential in the empathic leadership role, now it's time to share that in many writing formats, different ways that they can take from the experience. And so this is being more intentional about the writing. And even though the other one is about them being able to create, some type of mini course, for themselves, and then translate that into a publication. And that's obviously a form of writing, or it could be that they create that into a mini course that they just facilitate, whether they publish it or not. But this one being more intentional is to be able to extract the higher gifts and of being an empath, and those different levels of the purpose, and then leveraging the writing really as the primary vehicle of expression, at least initially, and just seeing how many ways that they can use their experience. But of course, just starting with one, and Gina introducing them to the journey of writing and publishing. And then it goes on to, now let's empire-tize this the right, WRITE way, with now really fully leveraging being highly sensitive and creating a high-end advantage in an entrepreneurial way. And so that's where the other publication comes in with the VIP Day Intensive Workspace Planner. And so you can see kind of the building in the two different strands, of this experience. So Gina, before we actually move on, how does that feel as well, having these two different strands that would then lead into, the opportunities, and you creating mini talks around this? So how does this feel initially?
It feels to me very powerful. I mean, the first one, in a sense, is very much based on developing you as the individual, and looking at what's holding you back and how you can step into that power.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, whilst that is still a continuation of that, it's the next level, but it is about how you then share that with other people in a profitable way.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing for me, and it may be something that we'll talk about later when we talk about the writing, is that the writing, and it's certainly a premise that I've learned from you, is that we're moving on all the time, developing, if we give ourselves permission to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that what we have been through and what we have learned is of huge value to people who have perhaps not as far ahead as you might be.
Mm-hmm.
That you can then provide something for the many where you don't have to be hands-on.
Right.
So it's once it's done and it's out there, it can help many. But at the same time, through the process of writing, my experience is that I continue to grow and evolve.
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword, if you like. You're helping far more people, but at the same time, it is actually, well, I think it just acts as the rocket fuel to your own development.
Absolutely. That was well stated. And something I want to touch on, because of what you brought up in terms of what you've learned from me in terms of the writing, process, is that the process that I use in terms of the communications metamorphosis, and a lot of times when I'm doing the breakdown of it, is the speaking metamorphosis, how you write for caterpillars, and you you speak to butterflies. And so a lot of times when we've developed, as you mentioned, we've come to a point, and then we put that in writing as that part of the journey. We're not actually really supposed to be going back as butterflies to actually help other caterpillars come along in a certain way. And I know people are like, what? Wait a minute, that we go through our journeys. We're here to help people. And so to take someone who hasn't been where you have, and bridge them into, or transition them into the next phase, well, they need some guidance. And that is true, but it is not for the evolved perspective in this new trajectory to actually be the ones to go back and do that. It's like, as they're going, they start bringing people along and developing them. But by the time they reach a point, or as they're coming to that point, then they develop the publications that are going to give them the metamorphosis process to work that part out themselves, because a butterfly goes on to be with other butterflies and live the other butterfly life, and allows the demonstration of their process to be that that empowers and fuels others, to come along. Because if not, what happens is you'll get dragged down. And I'm speaking from a new Earth energy grid here. So there's differences in the new trajectory, the new now trajectory versus the old traditional trajectory, which is what has actually delayed the evolution of the expansion of this world, is because we do have individuals who are spending too much time in their leadership and mentorship trying to pull others along that actually need to be able to work those elements of the journey out, for themselves. But now in this case, so that I can be clear, is that with the process that Gina is creating, though, it is creating an opportunity to accelerate. So it's not that you actually can't still work with individuals who aren't at a certain place, but it's how you do it. It's the way that you do it. And it has to be in an accelerated format, more so to set them up for their level of the journey, and then allow them to be able to go through, that process until they're emerging into these butterflies. In this case, we're really leveraging the Phoenix energy. They need to feel the power of their rise. And she is going to be able to provide that by giving them these different levels and stages of empowerment to work through, and then her ultimately helping them to set up how the next level of their lives can be, but also the contribution. So something else I want to bring up, going back to the point of the whole writing premise. So Gina, prior to working with me, she's tell a little bit about your experience, because you had already six or seven publications, and you can share about your, being, a multi number one international, bestseller, and then kind of the publication process of what I introduced to you and how it's produced now, over 30 publications or so in a very short period of time.
I've written books for very different reasons. So my first two books were written as the transition from being a principal or head teacher for over 20 years into working in the corporate world. And so I used my experiences to create my first two books, how to manage your staff more effectively and kickstart your career. And so they were a distillation of all of the principles and strategies and techniques that I had used for my school to become an award-winning school, because it was about people. The next two books were very different, and that's Chariots on Fire, which was a little of my story. I've learned to walk twice as an adult, and I ran my school for the most part from a wheelchair. And Chariots on Fire is a little of my story, but it's really the principles that I used to give myself the positive advantage, despite the fact that most people would see somebody in a wheelchair as hugely disadvantaged. But for me, there was a gift in that disability. And through that, I created a way of developing leadership, which underpins the work that I do now. As I spent time away from school, I had a greater sense of purpose that I needed to reach far more people and recognize that actually, to be a great leader, the first thing you have to do is to lead yourself. And so I wrote the book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways of Happiness, Success and Fulfillment. And both Chariots and that book, and a later book, the Happiness Challenge, they all became international #1 bestsellers. And they're similar in the sense that they're a traditional format. They were published, the first two I published, self-published at a time when it was really quite tricky. The cost was significant. I used professionals to do it. And it cost about £5,000 per book. And we're talking about 2005-06. So quite a considerable sum to find. With Chariots on Fire and Thriving Not Surviving, I used an indie publisher, and that was much less expensive. Then I met AliNICOLE, and she introduced me to the principle of writing intentional journals and intentional workbooks. So if you use Thriving Not Surviving as an example, there are 7 underlying principles, 7 connecting themes, and the 5 pathways. If I was rewriting that book now, that would be a book for each principle, a book for each connecting theme, and a book for each pathway. Because rather than give everybody the information and people just read it, it would be giving them the strand of information and then providing them with a workbook or an intentional journal so that they could utilize that and give them a structure to embed it into their daily life in a bite-sized chunk that was manageable, one leading on to another.
Absolutely.
And that's the principle of the books that I've written here. If you look at the series of books that we've been talking about today, that could be one big tome. And although some of the themes are revisited within each of the books, basically they are taking you from the step. There's a previous book which we're not talking about today, which is for people who don't know if they're empaths.
Yes, and you can actually state what that book is too, because I can include that in the.
I haven't actually got a copy of it.
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to have the copy, but if you want to tell what it is.
Are you an empath? How would you know if you were an empath? Because many people, and certainly many of my clients, when I first started working with them, they had no idea that they were empaths.
Right.
As I started to work with them, there are certain indications that people are empathic. And I think lots of people have the view that you are only an empath if you can speak to people who have died, or that you're wearing, Indian cotton robes in a ranges of purple, and you have a crystal ball and tarot cards. And that's not the case. There are many, many types of empaths. But I think what they all have in common is that they have a sense of there is something bigger than themselves, that they are here to do something of note in terms of helping other people, animals, the planet, and that they are in tune with other people and they pick up the energy of that other people. Might not have the language of it, but they are very much affected by other people's mood because they haven't yet learned. One of your principles, which I think is such an easy way of thinking about it, is to observe, not absorb. But ultimately, what I've learned through writing in this way is that these books, which are all published through Amazon, they cost you nothing to publish unless you choose to have the cover designed. And you can use things like Canva to do the covers if you don't want to use Amazon's own publishing arm. But you can get works out there quickly. So an example would be, I did the thinking talk, which is taking the bullshit out of leadership 2 weeks ago. The book is written, formatted, and by the end of next week, that will be published.
Right.
And that's an intentional journal and workbook to help people recognize, are they bullshitting themselves?
Right.
How do they take charge of that? How do they create their own internal bullshit meter?
Right. Love it. We'll make sure we have a link to that talk in the description. And also when the book does come out, we'll make sure the link is, it's in there as well. Something before you move forward, because I do want to continue on this before we get into being present with the journals, is again, the space is so expansive here. So there's actually the opportunity also to create another strand for the journey of an empowered empath, even in this more profitable way, by actually bringing in the, the publication of, are you an empath? And then getting into the harnessing, and then the stepping, into your, the stepping into your genuine power, and then the acceleration aspect, and then what could happen with that is that instead of actually taking them into another publication from the profitable way, in a sense, this is where the mini talks that you create for the other ones can be put on that particular platform for them to listen and sort of level up, and then it could be the opportunity that it segues into. So it's really a nice little funnel system in a sense of that. Or here's the deal, or you don't actually make that particular platform so much about the profitability from the kind of the financial aspect, that we're talking about. This can be where it is more of the holistic aspect. So you could actually incorporate one of your publications, which I want to get back to talking about all the different variations of the publications that you have produced. So you have the Profits Inside Out, and you have Becoming a Profitable Enlightened Leadership. And I know that there's going to be one that's coming up for, the Profitable, Enlightened Empath, or the Enlightened Profitable Empath, or however. And I think that would be a good one to use. So there's just the opportunity through the ones, and we can look and explore that too. Look at some of the publications. We may even do a screen share of your Amazon page, right? And so look at some of those publications that maybe could fit for that, particular strand. Or you just leave it at the opportunity to, after they do those first 4 publications, because you already actually have a platform that's got all these different ones and variations. Yes, but something is feeling like there's something springboarding off of this one here. So give me just a moment. Do you mind actually, if and even if it's far away or whatever, do you mind actually getting the Are You an Empath?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can, I will go and get it.
Yeah. So you go and get that, and I'll just kind of keep talking here and expounding upon this, because there's a reason why that particular one came up. And again, it's just an opportunity to keep the expansiveness going for these different levels, you know, of service. So I love the trigger prompts that life gives. And especially when we're talking about these different journal style formats. And as Gina is going to get that, so I want to talk a little bit about, expound upon more of the process that she's been through. So she talked about how I have demonstrated and mentored her and guided her into, okay, we'll get to that in just a moment, how I've mentored her and guided her through the process of developing these, well, I call them, they're sort of mini messenger books or mini books that are anywhere from 30 to 70 pages. But, you know, some are longer, but what the purpose is that they are created in these journal style formats, whether they're in workbook style formats, just Q&A or just journal processes, assessments. There's a variety of ways, but what it is just like she mentioned, is being able to take a strand or a segment of a particular concept or a few, and being able to allow people to be very intentional with that. So Gina, as she was talking about the, you know, 6 to 7 publications, you know, that she did before we were working together, but she went on to create a variety. And actually, Gina, if you don't mind, let's actually go to your Amazon authors page. If you could screen share that.
Let me just find it first. So
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and set them up for what they'll see with this particular Amazon page. And there's a variety of different publications, because the way that I teach is for individuals to write from their life experience, personal, professional, spiritual, and educational development, really using the whole of their lives. But even if they have a core focus or a core intention, they need to create different dimensions of these particular publications, but also don't limit themselves to write from just what their primary expertise, you know, are. You can write something from a hobby or just life principles in general, just as what Gina, you know, was talking about. And so you see that she has a variety of leadership publications, and then also ones that are just from her, you know, everyday life experience. Okay, so I get you to maximize that screen. Okay, there we go. So as we can see that she has where the 7-day happiness challenge, and she talked, you know, about that. But then you can see the harnessing the power of being an empath, and then also too writing from her experience with celiac disease, and being able to help individuals, you know, with that. But that's also a publication that's extremely beneficial to others who don't, but maybe that diet would be, you know, most aligned, you know, for them, just for better health and well-being. And so actually the first publication, that project that Gina did in the journal style format, is actually the Genuinely New, and you can actually see that one, the Genuinely New. And that one is really for those over 60 who are trying to discover their new life purpose, in a sense. And so that was the first one that she created. And then, and these are not in any particular order, I just happened to, you know, point that out, that particular one is what came first. So there's an array. So as I teach to write from your experience, okay, so you want to do it in that format? Okay,
well, only fine. Because those were Kindle versions, and a lot of these aren't in Kindle; they're just in paperback. So
yes, in paperback, yes, and the paperback is what is the encouraging, you know, the paperback. So with her going through these processes, then there was the opportunity for her to also write about embracing the author within, because even though she's published works, but kicking more into her empathic abilities, the opportunity to do more writing from a very vast, you know, perspective. And so a actual contribution or a collaboration project that was going to be, and it's still kind of going to be, but just it's taking on a different format. So she started writing another publication that I had given to her as an assignment. And from this, she shared with me what she had, and she was kind of feeling not necessarily stuck in a sense, but it was like that was all she had at that moment. And so I told her, this right here needs to be a publication by itself. So we will come back to the other part at another point, even if it's going to be still relevant. And so so we'll scroll down. So she's got other ones on leadership, the journey into a new era of profitable leadership and profitable enlightened leadership. And I want to say, all of the publications that besides the ones she named, Gina will tell you, these have all been assignments that have been given to her, and she has turned them out. Just been phenomenal. And now she's at the point where she can, within, less than a day, where she can have it going, and then it just goes over to, the publisher for Kindle Direct Publishing, the platform of Amazon. And within 24 to 72 hours, or sometimes 24 to 48 hours, your publication, is live on Amazon. So we'll just scroll through so they can just see a variety of these leadership publications and some of the ones that you've named. And then one of the more recent ones here that she has done is Your Life in Their Hands. And I love this because it's co-authored. And do you want to share a little bit about that particular publication?
The book came about because Vicky Price, who is a really good friend of mine, has triple negative cancer, and she had it returned for the third time. And we had been quite distressed and, really angry, I think, about the way in which opportunities to help herself in terms of her health had been completely ignored and dismissed by the oncologist. And when she came back the second time, she found a treatment. We fought for her to have the treatment, and it gave her 2 years ostensibly cancer-free. When it came back the third time, the oncologist was not ready to listen to anything else. And she's on a protocol by Jane McClelland, and is doing much to help herself. And she got the results of the latest scan, and the cancer has not grown so far as we can see in the time since the last scan, which is a huge step forward because it had grown very quickly. And so we both share a bit of our medical journey, if you like, and the approach to take responsibility for your own health. Question, never aggressively, never, but challenge, that realize that there is always something you can do through your diet, through your lifestyle, through your understanding the connection between your physical health, your mental and emotional health, and your spiritual health. And so this is a book just to help people recognize that it's your life, you're the expert on you, take radical responsibility for that. Not anti-doctor at all, but actually you need to work in partnership with them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Something that's coming up right now. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's actually going back to what's developing in the moment around the Are You an Empath, and kind of another strand. And so what I'm sensing is that once they get to the point where the first 4 publications are there, maybe there's a few of these, and let me just be present with this here. So go to the next page, because what I'm sensing is almost like them getting to choose the direction and where they're going to go. And so there may be a few publication offerings and opportunities, or it just may be that they go to this Amazon page and then maybe select what that 5th publication is for them. Right. To let it be more of a customized experience. So it's feeling like something like that. And so we'll play around a little bit more with this. So she's contributed to several publications of mine, and some of them, you'll see here as we're scrolling, through. But the whole point of bringing this to the forefront is that you see a variety of these opportunities that exist within these journal style publications. There's highly sensitive to high in the right WRITE way.
There it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, there it is. And so again, like you can see that we have a lot that we have co-authored, together, and still miles to go before we sleep. And so you can scroll over, go to the next page as well. I just want them to really.
I think we're there. I think that's it now.
Oh, is that the third one? Okay.
That's the third page.
I must be getting confused with mine that goes on until,
I think yours goes on a lot
forever, right?
Yeah.
Over 300.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a particular one that I wanted to target in on. I tell you what, go back to the view, go back to the view, the traditional view, and we're going to scroll. Yes, up this way. So scroll over. So if you can just, yes, let it, yes. So just keep going. I like seeing it from this. So here's one that didn't really come up. There's a couple that didn't come up within what we were looking at. And so there's your gardening book, My Garden, Insights to the Windows of My Soul, and discovering your, let's go over here to the discovering new levels of your financial power. The right way. Oh, you know what? Here we go. Something that came up is that the next publication that they would need actually is going to be one of that comes from Brenda Jacobson. And so we'll sit with what that could be in terms of a publication of hers that would help to best, help them facilitate that. It's feeling like it's another acceleration publication, which she has one on the responsibility, and everything. So it could be that those are the ones that come into play for that particular platform. But then it also too can just set them up for financial success. So it may be that she has getting to the root of your financial greatness for empaths. That publication is feeling more right for this other platform that's emerging. So that's what the communication is coming through at this point, is that there'll be the ones that we talked about, and then the profitability aspect is for them, yes, discovering using your financial one and hers, the getting to the root, because then that will cover kind of the root chakra aspect in that one. So you can just jot that down. Oh, I love this.
So stop sharing now, yeah?
No. Scroll a little bit more. I want to show you off here.
Thank you.
So you see all of these different leadership books here for the enlightened leadership. And as she said, there are aspects of these that could be combined into one particular publication, but having them individualized where people can be very intentional about that specific core focus, they can refine the process and develop better, in this way of intentionality, and have the sacred space for each compartment or category, if you will, of these areas of great importance to their leadership journey. And so they're not overwhelmed by just everything being in one place. And as they work through one, they can go, through to another, or so, but they can centralize their focuses and their thoughts around this particular aspect, within that one place. So, okay, keep scrolling through. I'm just going with the flow here and the guidance to be for people to be able to, look and see, what comes out as an empath when you start writing from different aspects, of your journey. And okay, so we keep going over until we get to the end here. Okay, wonderful. So at this time, we can stop the screen share. Just leave that up in case the guidance is to go back to them and I need to be present with, any of those that we don't have here. Because the thing about it is that we're not limited, even as building these platforms, not just limited to the publications that are being presented. It is more like when you were in college or so, there's a core curriculum that you everyone has, right? And then you have your concentration. So even though the core focus may be that this is about becoming an empowered, profitable empath, right? And the core curriculum is building up in the power at these different levels and then coming into the profitability. But then to make it a more holistic experience, there are other areas and elements of life that they may say, well, but I want to work on this area too. And could you help me customize that?
Yeah.
And so let's just say, even if they see the publication, but they don't necessarily get the publication, but maybe they do want a premise of that, then that's the opportunity to maybe create something unique there that's actually going to be more profitable for for you and for them in terms of that experience. And because these platforms are set up to do the accelerated work, your thing is that you can then have a continuation, at least for a short duration of time, of a repeat individual who just says, well, now that you've done this with me, can we actually do some other publications, or can you just help me set up a premise? I'll buy the publications, and then you just give me kind of the best format that you think I should use to work with all of them. Because it's different when people buy publications as standalones or even group publications, and they have them there. But if they want to work on this in more of a process, then that's where you can give them, have a power hour with them or a customized experience, and then just say, co-create with them and just say, these are going to be, I recommend if you're going to use these, work through them in this way, to have some sort of structure, if they're requiring that. So you see the expansiveness of this opportunity? Yeah. The gift that keeps on giving. Go ahead.
I would say it's great because it not only does it give people the opportunity to choose what style works for them, how they operate, but also their particular circumstances, how much time they've got, how much money they have to invest. It means that the books are very inexpensive, and deliberately so that should never ever there shouldn't be anybody that can't access this information and this opportunity to grow.
I agree wholeheartedly. And so that's the beautiful thing about the creation of these platforms, is because in the platform can be, yes, there's the publications and maybe a premise of how people can best leverage that for themselves if they're doing it in a customized format. Then there's the opportunity for you to actually take them through a process with the publications. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And then the opportunity for it to then segue into one of your larger platforms. So again, it is the gift that keeps on giving, and it's what I call the wealthy web factor. And you've actually reviewed one of my publication around that on Amazon, and being able to have this web where they come into one platform, and it keeps segueing them into different levels of their greatness, the different realms of value that have been created, that it's not just you come here and then you're just done. There's the opportunity to continue on. And so again, someone gets introduced to one publication of yours or a publication series, but then look at what you have, the whole array of these options that really speak to the essentials of life. And so, so it then gets them to really getting into unlocking their codes, because that's what the intentional journal aspect does. The more we can have the inner work done on that level, the more, and so I'm going to say this, I'm not trying to knock any paradigm in a sense, but again, the more people can be in their divine dominion as the co-creators that we're here to be. You don't have to rely on, whether a tower is going to tell you this, or Wheel of Fortune, or you have your own information. So you don't have to look in the stars or the cards. You can have your life codes revealed to you, your old and your new, simultaneously working together for your evolution. And that's where you are the molder and master of the clay. You're the potter on the wheel with the divine energy coming through you to be able to formulate your life based on your information and not premises from, you know, other formats. And I'm not saying that other formats of sense can't be leveraged, but you never want to be reliant on any of those things when the power and the information is really within you and it is an individual experience. So yeah, so on that note, let's breathe. Let's take about 3 deep breaths, please. Okay, right, great. So just allowing this process to flow organically the way it needs to. We had no idea we would be showing off the author's page or anything, but you know, or that the other publication, you know, will be coming into play. So, you know, so actually in the energy of that, before actually moving forward into the other ones, because this is feeling like it's actually, it's like not a reverse engineer process, but well, it kind of is because we're starting with what the major premise was, but it actually is giving us an entry level platform into these. So let's start there. So bring forth the Are You an Empath? Okay, so let me be present here. Okay, so identity illumination is coming up here. And what it is that within being able to discover that true identity, there's something else that is not in the publication, but this process will bring more of the illumination to that identity. And so that's something within the context of setting up whatever it is in the communication to talk about this is about that the journey, being able to show these different levels or shine the light on these different levels of the identity and purpose, because it's never just about one identity in a sense, you know, but they'll be able to see kind of the multifacetedness of this. And this is what this experience is going to provide. So after you finish jotting that down, I'm going to have you to open up there's something midway here. How many pages are in the publication? Or how many, I should say, in terms of the not the pages that they go into the exploration, but it's just something midway in the just open it up. So
Are You an Empath?
Yes, and Are You an Empath? So just something midway within before you actually get to the process that they go through. So there's something in there. So we'll just go with whatever comes up, whatever you land on.
There's two here that seem to be, interestingly, they're absolutely even on the page. One is the connection with others is not always comfortable, and the other is wanting to help.
Okay, read those again.
The connection with others is not always comfortable, and the second is wanting to help.
Okay, perfect. So here we go. So one of those layers of the identity in the discovery process is really discovering how to be unique in your own skin and very comfortable with that, and the ability to be around other individuals and still stand in your truth and stand in your purpose. And a lot of times when people are just discovering or noticing that they are, you know, empathic, and they you know, start talking about what the journey has been and what they've been sensing and everything. And often you hear more of the disempowerment energy versus the empowerment energy, right? Because they aren't even aware that they're empaths, and they aren't even, you know, they're not aware of really the journey. They just know what they've been feeling, but they've never been able to put it into a context. So instead of just having, again, going back to those different strands, the different strands of identity is like I said, is what's coming up. But learning how to be comfortable in your own skin and that part of your identity, and knowing that that's not the only part of your identity. There'll be different levels that you have to get comfortable in. That's where the empowerment comes in. This is where the segueing actually into, even when you get more into the harnessing aspect, it's the building bridge and the leveraging that, oh, here we go. So what happens is that every, even though intentionally, every publication that precedes that, and I'm actually going to share the backstory to this publication in just a moment. Even though it makes sense to know that, well, yeah, each one builds upon each other, but there's something about the setup, though, that's going to be more illuminate in the identity aspect, because each phase is an identity that keeps getting refined. So we're going to kind of expound, upon that. I'm just allowing the wisdom to flow at this point. We'll bring more context and make sense of it, as we're building here. So let me come back to this. Let me segue to talk about how how this particular publication came into fruition, I should say, is that, Gina, the order of her empathic publications has been, harnessing your power of being an empath, stepping into your genuine power as an empath, and then the accelerate your potential, and then the soaring, which is not one we have available here now, but the soaring as an empath, soaring to new heights, yes, as an empath, right? And well, no, actually, for the soaring, was it the right way? The sharing your empathic gifts the right way?
That came next, and then soaring.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that came next, and then soaring, and then is that all for the empath?
That was all in the series, and then there was quite a break then, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And so what happened is that as Gina was progressing, and I was getting present, with her in another context, and I said to her, before you are actually launching from your own cocoon in this, I said that there's a part of you that feels that something is unfinished. And I said, it's almost as if I feel you reaching way back before a person even enters into the cocoon, enters into the metamorphosis process, which is what these publications do to take people through the gap work. I said, I feel you reaching back to the individual who hasn't even, is not even aware of whether they're an empath or not. They're not even aware of this journey. I feel your energy reaching back. So there's something that needs to be created from that. And so from there, that's when, she was like, okay, I will create the publication of the works, are you an empath? Ask that question, and then be able to bring out the different characteristics of things that will allow people to know, potentially you are one or highly sensitive. And so it's interesting that the book that you would think would have come first came last, right? Yeah. But it took the evolution of her even getting started on this journey of now bringing her experiences that she's been, leveraging for years. And then, this is so beautiful because, goodness, I'm like tingling here. What's happening is that as I'm feeling what was the back, in a sense of reaching back to actually set the foundation for the journey to be more expansive for the ones who are just becoming aware. But then do you see where we are now? That was the last book published for Empath, right? Yeah. Now where we are in the creation process of because there's been a lot of platforms that she's created in between, for Empath. But the ones that are emerging now are about, the profitability, the higher level of empowerment, right? And yeah. So if you look at that and just say, wow, you're looking at your own journey in a sense of, well, at one point I was questioning whether I was one. And then you had to harness your own power. You had to keep stepping into the new levels. Then you learn how to accelerate. And then the writing aspect of now sharing the experiences of being an empath, and then now learning how to soar in new heights, but also because you've been on your own profitable journey and you've contributed to Works of Mine, and then like you said, you've built your training hubs and things, around this premise, but you haven't actually provided a context, because I feel a mini course book is going to come, a mini course is going to come from you in a publication format too, around this profitable, empowered, experience. And so I feel that we're going to actually touch on that today, but it's like the marriage, and that feels very complete for that particular process, for anyone who's going through the metamorphosis. And then we'll be able to meet you at the butterfly level. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes, it does.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I'm excited about that. So there's something about going back to the two things that jumped out at you, the side by side. Sometimes, and Gina, you've talked about this quite a bit in other, sessions and just other talks and things that we've done together, about people being very concerned about what other people think, and especially empaths. And even if it is around the charging aspect, but just in this case, just kind of in general. So people really get concerned about how others perceive them, what they think, and that can produce levels of being uncomfortable, of course. And so when we talk about, not being comfortable around others or different, give me those premises again, give me those triggers of those two.
One was about the connection with others is not always comfortable.
Yes, the connection with others.
And the other was around wanting to help.
Yes. So there's the thing of I want to help others, but then I'm not necessarily comfortable being around others. And some of that is because of, the empathic nervous system and different things, but there are also things that they have to work through. Sometimes not feeling adequate enough. What will others think? There's a lot, but there's the tug of war. I want to help, not necessarily sure how I can, not comfortable. So something that's coming up here is that within the communications, or something that is not necessarily in the publication that you'll expound upon within a process, is really about being able to dig into, to those two core aspects. Is that, for one, be able to shine the light that your mission is greater than your uncomfortability or so. And that in your call as an empath, and your unique purpose in this planet, you're being empowered so that you are able to facilitate this expansive life for yourself, but also to others. And so you need to actually start feeling more uncomfortable not to be comfortable. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think one of the things that strikes me particularly around the empath journey is how many of them, as very young children, felt different. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how many of them have closed down their gift because they were ridiculed or they stood out as being different. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that seems to be fairly common is how often empaths have had a difficult childhood, at times quite traumatic, and so they become people pleasers. They're desperate to fit in. And then if somebody says, "Oh, that's a bit strange," because it's different, it's immediately closed down. And part of the journey of an important part, I think, is recognizing that it's in that very difference that the gift lies.
That's another identity. That's another level of an identity. And see, do you see now why this needs to be, as you know, I leverage in the Matryoshka doll effect, the doll within the doll, the dimensions within the dimensions. Do you see why this level needs to be unpacked?
Yes.
In those different levels, even before they go into understanding how to harness and dealing with some of those patterns at that level, is being able to lay a more solid foundation within the discovery process of identifying whether they're an empath or not, so that every publication and parts of the process that proceed from this foundation, that's where the higher illumination is. That's where, when they actually go into, to reading, they'll actually find themselves even, steps ahead and accelerated. It's going to help them more refine the purpose and contribution that they have to the world when they're able to identify these next levels from a very different premise. And this is extremely beneficial, because this is why this publication had to come forth, and also why it's coming forth as another platform to leverage in addition to these twins. And it's a less intimidating process, in a sense of let them start there and build on those premises even before getting into the profitability aspect. But because everybody can identify in some regards around, kind of the financial aspect, and even if they're afraid of it, there has to be some type of financial management or understanding. And so being able to have the publication, your publication composition, your financial composition, but Brenda's is the one that keeps coming up. It's so here we go. So it's after those 4 publications, then it's her publication again, because we're talking about getting to the root, and I think she does touch on, the root chakra element within that. Then what happens is then your publication comes in, your financial publication comes in. So that's how many? That's 7 That's 7 publications or 6.
You said 4, then Brenda's, then my financial one.
Right. And so then the last one, because this is feeling like the energy of 7 is coming up.
Yeah.
So that's where they go to your page and then can pick out what a next level concentration is, for them. And then also it can be then the segue into them moving forward, going on and seeing the other platforms. And though they're looking, see, I already have those publications. I've already done, this part of the process, but I actually don't have that particular one, the profitable, harnessing your profitable power. Like I don't have that particular one, and so, yeah, see, there's a variety of things coming up. And the good thing about this is there are no limitations, because she can create one platform that has just that and then another variation in different dimensions. And so it could be that the 7 publications in, after the financial aspect of your Brenda's and your publication, then we can bring in the one that you and I have co-authored. Do you see that? How that, yeah. And so there, again, for the general public, there are no limitations here, not in the works that we do, in being able to express ourselves in multiple ways on different platforms. And just as Kindle Direct Publishing, as she mentioned, you can publish for free on there. There's no limitation to how much you can publish. But even with platforms like Tumblr, you can have one Tumblr account that has tons of other blogs underneath that, other platforms. I have several hundred, under one account.
Yeah.
And so and they're all there, for you to manage. And so again, she can create all these different variations, but initially the ones that we're talking about today are the ones that are kind of going to be the forefront. At least that's the premise that we needed to start from now. Because again, this is a co-creative process, a co-creative planning, brainstorming, mini VIP day intensive. So we are packing in quite a bit here to start to not just lay the groundwork, but actually get the construction and everything ready so that, she's ready to go. So, but let me just be present with the space here. I'm feeling like that is complete. I'm feeling like that for that particular platform. So we just have to come up with the name of that one. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is to actually get present with those two uh, kind of agendas that you turn to. Get present with that and see if there's anything else that is revealed to you from, from there. You may be guided to go to another place within the publication, um, to sort of bring all that home. And then that also may help to come up with a context of no, this is separate. Give me just a second. The naming of the platform, because it is still within the empowerment aspect or leading to the financial part. Go ahead. It'll come a little bit more clarity as you're present with that. And if nothing comes, that's fine too. So from those two, let me be with you for a second, because I'm feeling not necessarily split energy, um, but there's like the wanting to zero in on a specific thing, but I feel that there's two messages coming up in your awareness. So let's go to the wanting to help others energy first, and what just initially comes up to you from that.
I think at the level of when people aren't aware, although it's true of actually many empaths who are aware, again, these are always multifaceted, aren't there? And one
Yes, they are.
around that there is this drive to help other people. But if it's not done in the right way, then helping other people is more about making the person who is uncomfortable with themselves feel in part comfortable about themselves. So it's actually much more about helping themselves than it is about helping others. And that can be one of the reasons, but there are other reasons why then they're so keen to help that they actually create a situation of learned helplessness, because they take total responsibility for the process rather than it being a partnership and actually supporting
the other individual
to take responsibility.
So there's the confusion around and within their vibration, the uncertainty of wanting to help, not knowing how to, and also because they're not fully empowered and grounded yet to be able to actually facilitate any type of process. And the thing about it is they don't have to rush to facilitate any type of process. What it is that they become empowered themselves, and from what they learn, they can share that little bit. It's like the one step ahead expert is what I call it. Not someone who necessarily has figured out the journey, has even arrived at a certain point, but as they're going along, then they're able to empower others based on just what they've learned. And even if that is true, then referring them to the same resources that they're using. And so it's making this entry with ease into service very doable and practical, and it takes the pressure off. And one of the things, I teach about with the empaths, that sometimes they can over mother situations, yet under nurture themselves and under nurture the gift that really is emerging. So being able within these different levels of identity is that, okay, you've discovered this about yourself. And then yes, maybe as you were going along, you help someone else to discover that they are an empath too. But what you do, instead of trying to take charge to help in, in a more expansive way, it can be just as simple as, here's what I've read, here's the process that I'm doing, and maybe be invited into that process instead of actually trying to take it on themselves. So it basically is being able to have this component that helps them to understand the different levels of serving according to where you are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I think also what comes into it is that you have to know yourself. And I think one of the challenges of people who focus on helping others to the exclusion of working on themselves use it as a distraction from doing the inner work. While they're helping other people, they don't actually have to look in the mirror and deal with their own.
Exactly. Right. And so the encouragement can be, because what I'm feeling is this is kind of in the initial, kind of setup, whether marketing copy or landing page copy, in a sense, of being able to have these bullet points of what this process will do for them. And it can be, learning different levels of your identity, different levels of, of your service. And it may be that the encouragement is that initially, as you're going through this, don't at this point think so much about trying to help the masses or trying to even, help, people. Kind of take that part out, that the way that you're helping people at this point is by helping yourself first.
Okay.
And then again, they can bring people along by then just saying, hey, here's a platform that you can level yourself up with. And that is a huge contribution to, and so it's looking at the different ways that you can contribute at different levels. There we are. So that's kind of a bullet point or something that you can put in, is that we'll be exploring, the different levels of contributions according to your current phase, and that's what the overall process will do. Because really what's coming out at this point is not just about that particular publication. It is setting the premise for the direction of what this platform, the core objective for this platform, and what they will discover. We're just taking different elements out of the publications to kind of build what that context could be. And then also too, there's so for this particular platform, it's interesting how this platform here is becoming kind of the signature star of the session at this point, right? We've had no plans of this even being here, right? That's just the unfolding and the unlocking of the codes. Once you start going into one area, it then just brings everything back full cycle, in a sense. It aligns it better. So let me go back to where I was in terms of what was I saying before I even jumped into that? As I was going somewhere here.
We were talking about creating different the twin platforms, wanting the twin.
Oh no, not that part. I'm sorry. Like before I went off into that in terms of the last little bit. Well, I won't.
Explore different levels of contribution according to your current phase.
Yes, and okay, here we go. So where we were going with this in terms of this is speaking to the context of it all. And so that's like what's building. What was coming to me is that I felt that something initially for this would not necessarily be like a mini talk, so to speak, but almost like, when you're creating lumens for Lumen 5 and it's posing questions and it's like something that is within a 2 to 5 minute, which can be considered a mini talk in a sense, but not in the context in which I normally, teach from that premise.
Yeah.
But it's something around, for this particular platform, is starting that exploration into the empathic journey. So the empathic explorer, type of thing, discovering yourself as an empath, discovering that you are an empath, and what that means in the different journey. And because this is coming into that empowerment, even with the financial perspective, um, it's just getting the bullet points. But I see like a lumen, but it could be also you talking, you just a video of you that's talking about it and then talking about the platform and then letting that, you know, kind of be it. Because for the other two are going to be where you're actually preparing many formats of like the talk that you know that you've recently given. You're preparing in that way, but what I do sense is it is creating the energy though for something more expansive. But obviously, because it's going to be a mini version or cut in half of kind of the work that you did to prepare that one, you're preparing two different strands, but a lot of it's going to have some overlap, obviously. And that's going to make it easier for you in the creation aspect, you know, of these talks.
Okay.
So we'll just be with that and allow that to just, because of course, outside of um, this intensive here, then we have our intensives where we got the actual work, you know, around it. So now, so let's come to harnessing. Let's come to harnessing the power. Yes. Now hold that up for me, please. Okay, let me be present with this here. Okay, so something that's going to come out is about discovering your beingness. The discovery of your empathic beingness that holds the power to unlocking your best life. And after you write that down, bring it back up for me, please. Bring it a little closer. Okay, hold on. I need to see here. Okay, something also about beyond limitations. Beyond limitations. And it's not into limitless potential, it's beyond limitations. Into the empowered beingness or the empowered way of beingness. So these are just what's coming up is context that will be leveraged within the premise that will be created for the overall objective. So again, we'll formulate this at another time. It's just allowing those triggers to come up of what needs to be expounded upon within the lead-ins, you know, to this experience. Okay, so in your introduction, turn to that.
Interestingly, the first thing that opened up was the section on finding it hard to charge clients your true worth.
Yeah, and see, actually, since this is a linear thing, that is actually a context that you're going to pull out to leverage in that. What you also discover on this journey is how to, yeah. So yeah, so that's a highlight. That's something you need to, you know, to leverage. Where we are now, let me just segue here, is of course there'll be some overlap, you know, from all the platforms, and you'll be able to pick and choose from these different things and just create and tweak accordingly. So it's not a linear aspect that's taking place here, since a lot of the publications are core fundamentals, you know, for each particular platform that we're working on today. But you'll be able to leverage, you know, I think you'll be able to leverage these points within each, but just tweaking it again according to, you know, to the platform. So within that part, there is going to be the ability, obviously, to talk about the harnessing, but that's going to come more in the, you know, in the profitability aspect. So, so I'm going to get you to be present with with that journal. So sit with that for just a moment and take about 7 deep breaths. And at the end of that 7th breath, whatever comes up in your awareness is what you need to write down and then share. And we can talk about that. And again, whatever comes up does not necessarily have to be just pertaining to that publication. This is about just the triggers and things that are coming up of things that will be leveraged within the building of the content in terms of, presenting this. So it could be one word, it can be a feeling, it can be a sense, but there's,
I think what comes up, and it's not just in that book,
right,
is the need to be aware of your patterns, your patterns of language, your patterns of behavior, the way in which you consistently self-sabotage, because it's really common for empaths to get to a point where things are just becoming opening up, and then they'll
here we go. Let me jump in here. So becoming aware of the patterns that keep you from being empowered.
Yeah.
And obviously profitable. So yeah, okay. So go ahead. If there's anything else from that, if not, we can.
Well, that encompasses it all, I think. It is, there are many patterns, and part of what the book does, each of the books do, is to give you an insight into those patterns and how to deal with them, really.
At each different level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed from working with many empaths is for some it's fear of success, from some it's fear of failure, from some it's actually both, but they'll get to the brink of a shift, and they'll just teeter on the edge, and they need the impetus to make that move from the edge into the unknown. And I think for many people, but particularly empaths, when they understand intellectually, but it's actually embodying it, that shift from I know this, but I'm not being this, that for many is the sticking point.
Right. It goes back to, we talked about the empowered way of beingness, and learning what that is, and being able to make those shifts into this higher way of being as an empath.
Yeah.
And so let's bring forth stepping into, I'm feeling some speed up energy here. So we must be coming up on the acceleration energy, because I'm feeling like a rapidness coming up here. So page 2. So page 2, of course, within the context of the body, not like the copyright page. Yeah. So page 2. Let's around the 2nd paragraph.
So the book is designed for those who are ready to step out of their comfort zone, to take consistent action, and to have the courage to leave old, outmoded thinking behind. If you're at the start of your journey as an empath, if you feel you're not ready to step out of your comfort zone and ready to expand and accelerate your development as an empath, I recommend that you prepare yourself by working back through Harness Your Power as an empath.
Okay, stop right there. So we're at the courage to shift from comfort to empowerment. So write that down. The courage to shift from comfort, or from the comfort zone to the empowerment zone. It could be something like that.
Okay.
or comfort place of power. So it'll come, the context, the essence of it will come out.
Yeah.
And so and so we're good. We're good with that. Is the courageousness at this point to make that type of shift, because that's the step that needs to take place. And again, all of this is just going to build into the context of how you lay out the lead into this process, in which we'll get to talking about what this process is actually going to look like. So so now so you're sitting with something as that's there. Is there something else coming up before we move into the acceleration? Is there something else that jumps out at you, or you're sensing or feeling?
Well, only that one of the very common patterns is that, well, one of the things that needs to shift, and the title is Time to Step Boldly into the Future Rather Than Hold On to the Past. And I think there's so many that they are clutching onto the past like a life raft, thinking that that's going to save them. And it's an illusion.
Oh, that is very much illusion. So so here we go too. The courage to shift from the comfortable illusion, into the empowered future, or so something around that. It may not be those words, but it's what happens is in these contexts, it's more like a thesaurus, in the sense that one word may come up, but it's the essence and the vibration of it, and another part of the languaging may be leveraged. But it's just getting to what the core objective is, and how this starts to weave into these different points, again, to lead into this experience.
Yeah.
So and that was perfect there. So let's bring forth accelerate. So bring that a little closer here, please. Something about the leveling up energy is already like pulsating here. So the ability to accelerate, leveling up may not be the word that is used, but that's the energy or the essence that's coming up. It's being able to ground all of what has, ensued so far. But there's the ability, it's almost like the acceleration of acceleration. It's like being able to quantify, here we go, quantify your acceleration, and discovering your now and next level of potential purpose and expanded possibilities. So it's something, around that. So it's like whatever they would be doing to go through this self-assessment process is going to somehow quantify itself. So it's like whatever is built around the context in terms of the lead into this experience. When they get into the books and they start, it's going to be so accelerated that the books are almost going to become just kind of a recording place that they're documenting the process, because they're going to be in the process with you rather than so much engaged in the content of what's actually in the book, because whatever you're going to be facilitating is going to provide it at a more higher illuminate level. And this is actually what you want to go for, because this right here brings forth that epitome of empowerment, which, I actually talk about, the epitome of that aspect, within the empathic work. But this is a heightened level because it's more quantified. And so we'll talk about that in terms of in another session of building the context around that and what that will look like, within the process. And it could be within the mini talk that you actually do leading into the profitability aspect. That's the part that is feeling, wow, because I can just, it's almost like watching like a race, but it's like it started and it's finished already. And it's like, well, what was the in between? Because they're already at the finish line, But so it's that type of acceleration that's taking place. So if there's anything else that comes up for you, you can share that before we move on.
I think it's the intentionality. And accelerate offers people an actual way to quantify where they are in their journey in a whole
Absolutely.
range of different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Not to point out, not in a way of pointing the finger and saying you're not good enough, but actually recognize A, how far you've come, and B, where the areas you need to focus on next.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the accelerating of the awareness, which then leads to more expanded awareness, more expanded awareness.
I'm going to say, it not only talks about the awareness in the sense that I think the awareness comes in some of the previous publications. This is about actually working on the patterns of beliefs and behaviors.
Well, yeah, but that is expanded awareness, because once there's the identification of what that was, and again, each book provides the level that they need to be comprehending on at that stage. And so no different than we can master a certain level, but then we know as we are accelerating, expanding, evolving, that there's another level of that, no different than when we're taking a course in biology. And though we can be taking it at the elementary level and learning those fundamentals, but then we know that when we actually come back even to the next grade, they're going to recover, that, you know, they're going to recap those fundamentals and then build upon that with another level. So it is the same with this. When we have certain patterns that we have, let's say, overcome, or we've been aware of, and we've worked on those, but at another level that may be requiring another level of discipline or mastery, then we could then bump into a threshold and then need to not plateau, but learn how to cross-train in our essence, in a sense, to now, okay, how do I deal with this level? Because I've mastered that level of, let's go back to even being comfortable. Well, maybe I'm comfortable around 5 people, but now I've expanded to where I have to be around 10 to 15. So that presents another level that you have to go through, more expanded awareness around, I'm aware I have that. I've gotten to a point. Now I'm aware I have this. So what do we do now? But what's going to happen is that it's going to be an acceleration of going through, if you want to call it, busting through these patterns and developing new patterns and habits. So this simultaneous experience of, okay, here's what we have in a sense, but here's the acceleration of how they can, because this is all about quantifying, that's the energy, and going back to the intentionality. This is about quantified empowerment for the empath. There you go, write that down. Quantified empowerment for the empath. And basically this segment of it is providing that accelerated process, or this process provides the accelerated way to, you know, to quantify your experience as an empowered empath. So again, all of this is just building up the context to what will be points in the talk, or what will be, you know, points or content in context, you know, for the lead into this opportunity. Okay. So if nothing else, I'm feeling pretty complete with that. What about you?
I do.
All right. All right. So let's now go to the root chakra, the empathic, the red root. Okay, so there's a part in the publication, and I can't think of what page it's on, but there's a part where it talks about not focusing on the journey. The journey is not the, no, that's the wrong one. So here we go. So something else is coming up. There's something else coming in that I need to integrate. This is feeling more metamorphosis because of me making that statement, and it's actually not in this particular publication. It's in the metamorphosis publication that you have, which we don't have to get that. But that came up so that I could understand that this was more of a metamorphosis energy. Okay, so to put that back up, so that I've got the context of that here. Okay, here we go. So what it is that the formation is the context of what needs to be. So open up within the publication, and there should be this. I feel you probably go to it, and it may be the context that you actually talked about in terms of in our session that we did yesterday for another platform. about those three aspects of the foundation, the formation, and functionality. But in this case, it is about the formation, but it may be that you need to read that context, you know, for the premise first.
So the new fundamentals are about entering into new dimensions of your chakras in order to gain clarity for the greater realizations that lead to more expanded revelations about the new foundation, new formation, and the new functionality for the root chakra.
Okay, so hold on.
Can I just say that?
Oh, go ahead.
I feel as if I need to include the next little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
As a result, you experience the higher benefits of transformations and manifestations of a new awakened life, business, and financial success.
Read all of that over, because now that you've expanded, I get why I needed you to stop. There was a pause and a break, because what it is there's going to be a split in the context of when this is laid out, so that's why that came up. So read that again, but I'm going to be focused more on the formation aspect of it. But I want to hear that context again all the way through.
The new fundamentals are all about entering into new dimensions of your chakras in order to gain clarity for the greater realizations that lead to more expanded revelations about the new foundations, new formation, and the new functionality for the root chakra. As a result, you'll experience the higher benefits of transformations and manifestations of a new awakened life, business, and financial success.
So this here, again, and now I see about the metamorphosis energy, because this is about the form, okay? And the new dimension is all about being able to get into, in this context, in the chakra, the root chakra, so to speak, is, being able to take on this new formation. And within this new formation is going to be the new financial formation as well. But prior to that, it's about the new empowerment, the new forms of empowerment, and how to operate from there, which obviously will lead into the functionality. But how you get into this manifested experience is being able to go from these expanded, empowered revelations into now the new formation. And again, that is the metamorphosis. We will build a context around that, because that right there begins to be kind of the core of being able to segue into the profitability. Because within the root chakras, we talked and touched on before, that has to be really anchored and established. But at least we know that within this context, we have to focus more on the form and bringing that into form, which actually goes back to the beingness, right?
Yeah.
How are you being? The beingness that goes into the form. From the form and the beingness, now we can then get into how you function in this. But that right there is going to be something for us. So you need to put a star or a couple of stars, circle that thing, However, let that be known that is of great importance in building up, the process and the context, around it.
Okay.
All right. And so feeling pretty complete with that one. So unless you have anything else.
No, I don't think so. I think that's pretty comprehensive.
Okay. So now we can go to the
that one?
Yes, the harnessing your empathic, profitable Phoenixpreneur power. So lift that up a little bit and bring it a little closer here. Okay, you can back it up. Oh, I'm feeling the.
Because when I put it closer, I couldn't see
where. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm feeling the fire here. I am definitely feeling the fire. Okay, all right. So I just need to be with the energy of that there. So you be present with that, and then wherever you're guided, can open that up. And,
yeah.
Yeah, this is that energy shift from Firefly to Phoenix. uh, definitely feeling that.
Okay, this is what jumps out at me. The innate superpower that you possess will lead you to the paths for greater impact and income through profit illumination. The business world needs the illumination of your gifts and empathic expression as an entrepreneur.
Mm.
In order to become more illuminate, you must first start by acknowledging that there is such power within you that can cause you to rise like a phoenix. It's time to step into a new level of responsibility to this new power, and then you must embrace and embody this new expansion of you as a new empowered empathic expression.
Mm. Let's just sit with that for a moment, and let's just take about 7 deep breaths on that awareness. Okay. Mm. Wow.
Okay.
I just need a moment here because that there, I can already feel the excitement um, of the expanded benefit that this overall process is going to bring. And leading up to this, um, and this level of empowerment, again, I said I was feeling the flames, and basically it is that sensory of someone. It's almost like you've seen the images where there's a cat, and but then there's the shadow of a lion, right? Yeah. And or you look in the mirror and they're seeing themselves a certain way, but there's so much more. And so the illumination that comes at any and every phase, no matter which platform it is that the individual syncs up on, is that that's what they're going to feel and discover that, well, here I was. And even in when people think they're doing something great and massive, they'll discover that they're really pales in comparison to what is actually there, and how we have to take a second look. Even when you look and you see I feel like a cat, but then I discover I'm a lion. But then what does the lion look at? And then so what is it after the lion? We can say that's your more divine expanded awareness, of yourself. And so we have to look at it like that. So even the one who becomes what seems to be the giant, what is after him? What is the next level of that? And so that's what I feel and sense in this dimensional way, in a sense, is that the fire fly then discovers that they're a phoenix, but then the phoenix discovers that, woo, I'm so much more than this as well. That is the part of the realm even within humanity, that is the unexpressed awareness that we don't even know who we are outside of these contexts and premises that we've been given to look like it's the big, grander thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be discovering more in the grander scopes of the awakening.
Yeah.
And you think about your entrepreneurial journey, especially what you've been on with me, of discovering all these different dimensions of yourself, where in one context, it's like, okay, I thought this, and you had a vision for what you wanted to see come to fruition, or what you felt called. But then you realize that there's the calling within the calling within the calling. And then there's the journey that gives birth to another journey, that gives birth to another journey, that gives birth to another journey. There's this variation of my empire that gives birth to another variation, that gives birth to another variation. So it's all about what is the variation that's after that, that lets us know that there's no such thing as a rival. And so in this context, empowerment and profitability for an empath this is where that limitless expansion ensues, where they realize this is the continuation of the profitable journey that gives birth to the profitable journey that gives way to the more expansive profitable journey. So it is really the expansion of empowerment, continuously in this profitable way. So those are things, like I said, that within the experience that's going to be provided, or within the copy and the context, we'll be able to, to pull that in. So, so since this first one, and I know we'll be having to, wrap up soon. So the whole premise of the first one, the first platform, not the one that came about, within the session, but going back just to the two that are being, developed initially. So because we know that one is going to be about them going through this journey to ultimately then come to this point in creating their own mini course process for them, going through that publication, and then also thinking about all that they have come through with the publications and everything, with you, and now creating this contribution to the world, and whether that is in a format of that type of publication, or it is in them creating a mini course. And again, it's not necessarily going to be based on them piggybacking off of what you've already provided. It's that they're going to be able to discover what that is for them. And it may not be that it's even something for empaths, but they, can use it and leverage, it for, empaths. The one about the empaths, serving empaths, gets more into the second platform with the writing. This one here is just about them discovering why they are here, harnessing that power, and then being able to make it more profitable, but giving some type of contribution, whether it's to, the empathic community or not. And so with saying that, knowing that this is really leading up to them creating their mini course for themselves, that's their own accountability process in a sense, and then actually be able to create, a contribution. So hold on a second here. I don't know exactly where it is, but there's a page in the beginning. I think it's in the initial that talks about, after you've gone through this journey, use this as a template or so to create, your own type of publication. So as you're looking for that, there's two things coming up now, where it's a question posed for you that then will kind of be the same question posed to them later, based on the journey.
Sorry, can you tell me, what am I looking for? Can you just
so I'm trying to think of where it is, because I don't have my version pulled up here. There's a part where it may be in how to best use this, or a kind of an introduction, but it's in my words. I'm imagining that it's going to be, kind of at the beginning of what I've mentioned.
it's got to be.
Yeah, at the beginning. It would be, yeah, at the beginning, probably in the introduction.
So the very first paragraph is, as you rise in new levels of responsibility to your power, in order to be profitable, you'll discover that as an empathic-preneur, you have the superpowers that are far beyond your current perception or wildest imagination. Mm-hmm. You're not only an empath and an entrepreneur, you're a phoenix-preneur. You have the ability to powerfully rise out of your own ashes and create a new world, just like the mythical bird, the phoenix.
Mm-hmm. And so is there not something, and even if you can't find that, that's okay. I was just thinking it was probably within.
I can't see anything about journey. That's what's thrown me.
Okay, that's fine. It's more like instructions on how to use it, and then how to repurpose it. And it could be because we have two different variations of this. So I just wanted to make this clear to the audience that there's two different versions of this particular publication. One is for empaths, and one is for leaderpreneurs. and one focuses on a mini course, and I think the other one is it focuses on profits models. But one of the premise and the context it says within there is to be able to, once you go through this experience, because this particular one is about them customizing their own process based on the context that's, that's in the book. So it's a guided, journey, for them, but also them keeping in mind that as they're going through this process, be also thinking of ways that from their discovery and what comes up for them, how they can create a mini course publication of this nature for someone else. And in this case, like with Gina, it may be that what's brewing up here is that she actually is just creating kind of, it may not be in publication format, but she's creating a mini course that she actually does take others through in an accelerated way. And they're leveraging the publications, to build this accountability system or attract themselves. But ultimately, the encouragement is going to be that at the end of the day, they are creating their own, whether mini course publication, or they are creating a mini course for, their niche focus. So, so without having to go and try to look, for that, it's not necessary. But so a question that was coming up for me to ask you was, if you did have to create a course or an experience that's teaching others or guiding them ultimately to create a course for themselves, what is it feeling like, to you? Like knowing that you've already written all of these books, you already know what they contain, you know your own journey. And so being at this point of your own profitability and feeling empowered, what would you say would be a chief cornerstone, as if you were giving it to yourself right now, even if it is for your next level, obviously? What would be a chief cornerstone that you feel needs to be significant in the jump start of this creation process? Or what is this creation process feeling like to you? Is it just this teaching of how to create, this? What type of format, I should say, is it feeling like this should be facilitated in?
I get a sense that this could be audio or video, where it's expanding how people can get the best out of the process, and using the, as you say, using the books as a way of recording. First of all, acknowledging where they are, so doing an inventory, if you like, of where they are now, and then recording their thoughts and their progress. And then thirdly, so that would be the three levels: the inventory, where you are now, what needs to be done and how to do it, and recording that, and then strategically planning the way forward. So those would be the 3 steps.
Okay. So are you feeling like this is not something hands-on that you'll be playing any part in initially, or?
I would think that initially it would be completely hands-on, but the process would be recorded, so that became an evergreen.
Yes, of course, right.
But it would be
but it would be facilitated, and that's what I'm trying. The initial thing is that you would have something that's facilitated that turns into an evergreen experience. And so my thing is this feeling more of something you would do for an individual, or would this be a group initiative, or both, or a buddy?
I think it could be both, and I think that there would be slightly different variations depending on which one it was. But I think both could be valuable, and they would give a very different experience for those who are watching the evergreen. One of the benefits of having a group is the interaction within the group, as well as the interaction between the participant and myself.
Okay, absolutely. So this will be what I call one-offs that continuously pay off.
Say
So
again.
that, I call them one-offs that continuously pay off.
Oh,
And so
okay.
basically, this is something that you may facilitate for like a few slots that you have available for those who do kind of the one-on-one
Yeah.
aspect, and then those who do like one time that you're doing a group initiative. And then once you've actually, let's say that you have a block for like a month.
Yeah.
And within that month, you have, let's say, 5 opportunities for the individual. And then you're doing 1 or 2 initiatives for the group initiative.
Okay.
And then after that, you're done, right? And then it's then repackaged and repurposed and then packaged into this evergreen experience, which then will go on the platform that people can then purchase that particular aspect, and then the publication. And so, yeah. And so then that is the evergreen marketing effect, that I call again the one-offs that continuously pay off. It's that you did it for a season, but you're not looking to do this as a continuation of, parts of the works that
Yeah.
you do. It's just one of those, like we have our a la carte services, we have our main things and things, but then we have these other components. And so this here, because the next thing is that you wouldn't actually need to facilitate that continuously anyway, because then you already have the platforms that they can segue into. And in this case, we're talking about the profitability aspect. They go right into the enlightened profitable leadership training hub, and then level up with you in the different conferences. And so before, I know we'll be coming up at the hour. Do we have about 15 extra minutes on top of what we?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. And we may not need that, but just to have it, just in case. So with this, now that we know the context of the form that you want to, you feel best will be leveraged for this, and to let it be an evergreen experience. So for the mini talk that would, what are you feeling like a premise of this, of a start of a mini talk? Because remember, this is about the emerging, this particular one is about the emerging, empowered, profitable empath. And so based on what we've talked about, and you also knowing, what we've just come up with at this point in terms of how it will be facilitated, what do you feel is the best form of the mini talk to, to provide, instructional, or hold on, let me back up, because I remember the energy mentioned about being able to prepare this as if you were going to give the talk like you did,
Certainly, my initial thoughts were to do a 15-minute talk,
okay,
highly structured, in terms of so it would be a delivery rather than action.
Right. Okay. So yeah, and so so the mini talk would be be a delivery, and then the segue into the process, or the offerings. Okay. Okay. So that, and so are you feeling any sense of a core theme or title, which we know that the platform is this, but is there anything, and it may not be at this point, but anything jumping out as a highlight to say, within my title or subtitle, I know I need to include this specific thing?
I think there is something there about busting the myths.
Okay. Okay. About empathic profits disempowerment. Yeah. That would be a great one to,
just that busting the myths around empaths being having a profitable business.
Yes, there you go. So that's perfect. Okay, wonderful. So we've got a context. Yeah, okay, so we've got a context for that. Awesome. And so as soon as you jot that down, then we can quickly move into the next two, the sharing of the, what is it, sharing your empathic experience the
Yeah.
right way. Okay, so yeah, so maybe here, because this, again, we don't have to cover what's for the other ones, because we can, tweak that for this next platform. So okay, so I just need to be present. I just need to be present with it, because if this is going back, actually, this will be incorporated into this. Um, the cover is interesting because it's got these little specks of light and little specks of magic in it, and basically it's like, within the discovery of this journey, they're going to find these different little specks, and it's interesting. What's coming up is that there's almost like these different little flickers of those fireflies.
Yeah.
And those are like different dimensions of the essence. But how do we, you combine those small lights into one big lantern or one big lighthouse, so to speak? Because what happens is sometimes people can get overwhelmed in thinking about being this big light, right? And sometimes you do have to start with the flicker that you have, and then focus on the other flicker, and then let's combine the light. So that's what it's feeling like, in a sense, is that this writing experience and this discovery is really about combining the illumination. That's how the empowerment really comes, is that some people may not initially be jumping into, let me create this big ticket program or this big ticket some way, or curriculum that I charge a whole lot for. It may be releasing a mini book, and that's a flicker of the light that can become really illuminate, and then releasing another one and doing this. Do you get the sense of that? Of the it's the combining of the lights, something that we think, okay, that's little, but when we put them together, and we go to your Amazon page, and though it may be a publication that's been, not broken down, but these journals or so that aren't inundating people with a lot of information, those can seem like, okay, that's a little something, but take several of those combined, and wow, because one within itself is powerful, right? But just imagine all these little different components. That's what builds the light. And so that's where people have to start, is just start with the have enough light for the step that you're on. You don't have to see the big picture, even though we know that there is the bigger light that we want to be more luminous. But yeah, let's focus on the light at hand. And then how do we expand that light? How do we bring, if you have several little dimensions of you that feel like little lights, that's okay. Then we'll just join those aspects of you. We'll just join those. And then that is what will become illuminate. Because as you mentioned about the fire fly, is that you have to get real close up on it to see it, right? And it's not illuminate. But you get a pack of those things though, and you can be at a distance and actually see the light of many of those combined. So that's just a way to think about the little segments of the offerings of the little lights that combine, and these little mini writing initiatives that combine into a more cohesive light, through some type of endeavor. So does that make sense?
It does. I mean, one of the things I'll often say to people is you couldn't eat a cow or a whole field of corn in one setting.
Right.
You've got to break it down. And in a sense that this is a similar, it's the opposite way. Instead of breaking it down, it's about building it up.
That's it.
One candle in a room isn't going to illuminate the room, but you
keep adding candles, and it certainly will. And then eventually, whatever the signature work will be, and then getting into the highly sensitive to high end, which I'm going to have you actually go to that now in your it's in your email.
Hold on a second.
So, and what I'll do is I will be just present with as you're pulling that up, if you don't mind to go back to your Amazon page after you've gotten that up, and we're going to go over to that image.
So it's the highly sensitive to high end, yeah?
Okay, you have the PDF in the email that I sent you today with
All right, I'm just looking for the PDF of that actually.
it's a proof version of it.
Was it sent as an attachment?
It was today. It was sent
Yeah.
as an attachment.
Oh, I've got it now. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Okay, so just pause with that and now go back to your Amazon page and screen share it, please.
Hold on a second. Come back soon. All's forgiven. Where's it gone? Hold on a minute. I love technology when it works. I've got to stop the share. I'd got up the page and then it's disappeared for some reason. Oh, I know why. I've got to minimize that. Bear with me. I can't minimize and share. Okay. Okay. Why won't it work? So let's minimize that. Okay. And now share the screen.
Don't you just love technology?
Oh, yes. There it is. It wouldn't let me do it while it was the whole screen.
Okay. So there we are. So click on highly sensitive to high end, the right WRIT word. Yeah. So click on that publication, please. Okay, and click on the image of it. Go down to the images of it, and click right there. Yes. Okay. So let me do with this here. So there is something around the art of becoming, and even though we know that's within the subtitle, but there's something else here, and so we're going to expound upon that. One thing I want to bring up about this particular publication is that Brenda Jacobson provided the context around the root chakra, which is what she provided within the masterclass training that this particular publication, again, is repurposed content, from that particular masterclass that the three of us, facilitated together. And so she provides on the traditional foundational premise, which would be needed for this. I teach a more expanded context around the energy body and the chakras in the new dimensional format. But this is perfect because this gives the opportunity for the empath to have come to a place, and if they need to still work through that root chakra aspect before starting to build the high-end empire effect, this publication is going to do it. So Gina, something that before we go into the publication, that you are going to be, this part here, this particular aspect does feel like this part is going to be more hands-on a little longer. And the reason for that is because this gets into the empire building. And so what it is, oh no, here we go. No, what it is the process will be, yes, very much like the one that you are providing in the other strand. But what this is that there'll be an actual continuation for someone who is ready to actually build out the empire. It may turn into some type of mastermind or whatever, and then you would leverage, this publication and help them to build their context and structures, and set up the frameworks, leveraging this particular publication. So there's more of an expansive offer that's coming from here. And this feels like this is even going to be the more impact income advantage here. So something about the art, but it's the art form. And so I'll be a little bit present with that. So let's actually get into the publication really quick, and then thank you for that. And so after you stop screen sharing, you don't have to screen share the interior of the publication. You
Okay.
can just, turn to whatever jumps out, at you, and you.
I forgot to find it again. Hold on.
I love it. The pen in your mouth. It's so authentic.
That's not it. Hold on. I had it there and it's disappeared again. I'm going to have to go back to the email and reopen it.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So self as instrument.
Oh, okay. Some Brenda's words, because that's something of Brenda's.
Right. It's not clear from
Okay. Oh, okay. I see.
on my
Okay.
screen, but that's so. There's two things that have jumped out. One is self as instrument, and the other is journaling is your best friend.
Okay. All right. And so what we want to do here, since that's what's jumping out to you, is this is really self of instrument, which is interesting because I actually have a work that's similar to that context in terms of being, creating your own high-end, harmonious high-end experience. It's basically being the symphony and being instrumental. But I believe that you can leverage this in terms of being instrumental as, a high-end empath, and so, or a profitable empath is what we'll use it. An empowered, profitable empath. Being instrumental, here we go. Being instrumental as an empowered, profitable empath. So that's something that they will be learning on this journey. Being instrumental as a profitable empath, the right WRITE way. So that's something to be able to highlight within the copy, and in the context, and so
Okay.
and so yeah, and so even though that publication again is about being able to build out, start building out your high end services in different levels, leveraging the writing, but being able to actually focus on being instrumental through leveraging the writing. That is a great leading point. Being able to be instrumental, in your leadership or in empathic preneurship, empathic leadership, as a writer, and the power of that, of building out your empires with allowing writing to be that chief primary vehicle that gets things started, right? And see, this is a journey you've already been through, because see, you're more in the beyond the metamorphosis, beyond the cocoon, because you're more in your communication factor as a speaker and a communicator, right?
Yeah.
But those who are now coming through just these processes are still ones who are discovering that new form and discovering the benefits of writing, because you'll be able to obviously take from your journey of, wow, you see how beneficial this is to have published as much as you have, to have created all these different platforms, to have published the different articles, and how you can put those in different places and customize these different learning and empowered experiences for a variety, obviously, of sex of influences. But in this case, we're talking about the empath. And so you'll be able to provide a demonstration to the audience that you're going to be, the ones that will be a part of this, where not only are you going to be able to show them like how we went through showing your publications on Amazon, but you'll be able to show them the demonstrations of the different platforms,
Yeah.
your training hubs, and how the writing fit into those, and how they're great lead-ins and segues into other opportunities, whether it is speaking, whether it is consulting, whether it is courses or publication series, you
Yeah.
know. And so, and then within that experience, you'll also be able to share with them just like what happened with you and Lizzie, you know, and using that as an example, which, you know, we had time, we talked a little bit more about, you know, that particular aspect and how beneficial it was that because you had done what you done, then to have that connection, and then it leads to that. And then she ends up contributing the forward to the Reach Back publication, you know, so it's just, just an experience that you just can't phantom. You can't really wrap your mind around it. So before we get ready to conclude here, because again, this particular intensive was about doing exactly what has happened and being able to, you know, bring up and get triggers from, you know, from the publications. Well, something else is coming up. So go back to the right way, the high end, highly sensitive, the high end, the right way. So there's something within.
Sorry, where am I going back to?
Highly sensitive to high end the right way.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
So want to go back to the image, do you?
No, not to the image, just to the publication. So
yeah, I've got it in front of me.
Okay, so there's something, it's interesting. There's something from your section and my section. So go to your forward and like a phrase or something. And maybe one from mine as well, but there's something, because I'm feeling like there's a piece from each of us that is something that we need to kind of conclude on. As you're reading that, as you're with that, I'm going to say what's coming up for me in a sense is that there's something that needs to be expressed and expounded upon through your communication in terms of what it felt like for you to now start actually sharing writing for empaths and starting this journey. Because I know your forward talks about some of that, because basically your forward is a recap of what was the illumination and the ahas for you after the master class. And it's something about you, not necessarily revisiting that moment, but it's like the awakening to that. And as you translate that to some of the feelings that you got when that happened, and just thinking about if it had not happened, man, you know, the biggest detriment to the empathic community. Because look at what all we've done since then. We've done, you know, media tours. It's so much at other platforms, co-authored publications. We've done a lot of things together that has just been expansive. So it really is the opening of this journey. But there's something in your forward that is a phrase or something that will be you'll be able to express more within the copy that leads into this, or like I said, within your mini talk or within the program. It could be all three.
So maybe it's this. AliNICOLE made a significant distinction between getting recognition rather than revenue recognition. Many empaths look for external recognition that make them feel better about themselves. So much time is used by empaths giving clients their expertise and value for free, posting on social media in a way which results in little or no business, that they're exhausted and have no time to spend on creating a business which will pay the bills, let alone create wealth. The danger of this approach is it keeps the empath playing small, as the vibration is based on fear and lack.
Wow. Okay, that's it. So you don't actually have to go to my section, because you remember I said there's something from both of us.
Yep.
Okay, and it's right in there. And so right, so there we go. it's in your section, but it's bringing out something that
That
I
you
have
said. Yeah.
that I have said, but it is something that you will emphasize or expound upon, because remember when you were hearing that in that masterclass, and then being able to translate this, because that's your aha and your epiphany, and things, and plus what you've witnessed too. But now, because you've had this journey of developing for empaths and becoming more profitable as an empath, and building out structures for that, there's going to be more expanded revelation or awareness or communication around that. So we may not get that now, but just note to self
Yeah.
that, okay, I need to focus in on this particular aspect, that this is important, um, because that delaying around and stalling and all these different things and trying to, be a people pleaser. It's almost like, you can't be you can't be a profitable people pleaser as an empath, or you can't be, because you try to please people a certain way. It's going to be to the biggest detriment of yourself, them as well, but you certainly can't be a people pleaser and an empowered, profitable empath at the same time. And yes, can you please people in what you do? Absolutely. But it cannot be from the vibration of being so concerned about being perfect before them in a certain way, to the point where there's not the divine right value exchange. So you can't get the recognition in that area. Oh, Susie is such and such, is so great and so wonderful, loving, and always there and supportive, blah, 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 but not tap into the not the time currency factor that also leads to the grander profitability, and which that does show up in the revenue recognition. And as you know, and when I teach on that, it is, you need feedback that is going to feed you back. Praise with pay. Praise is great, but pay praise, goes a whole lot. Yeah, exactly. So there's something there that will be developed. So instead of getting into what we feel like this particular process is going to be, since I already know that it's going to be much like the one that you're already creating, and the mini talk or so will, maybe follow in that same format or so. I don't know, but what we do know is that there's an expanded, another edition, if you will, um, of an offer for them, building out, or at least you helping them to structure building out the next level of their empire. And much like all the frameworks are there, and then you've got the example of your training hubs on very different levels.
Yeah.
So that this right here is going to open up to something more expansive. Those codes are going to just start accelerating on so many, and you'll be able to then read within your own journaling process and your own development process. You'll be able to read and assess and bring forth the higher expanded awareness and next level comprehension for how this needs to continue to ensue. So wow, we have covered a lot, right? But it's an intensive, and we've actually touched in areas we did not know that we would, but that typically happens, doesn't it?
It's certainly, I'm going to say, I've never known a session where we haven't covered a ground.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. And so with that, like I said, this is a great place to conclude, a great place to be able to, to jump off in terms of the next level, of building out,
Yeah.
And everything. And of course, again, I'm just so happy that you're allowing, just your organic process within this to even be for the general public to benefit from. So many people are going to get a lot of value, from this, and certainly hope that they will definitely reach out to you, because I'll have their information, publications, and everything, in offers that you have available for others. I'll have those, like you say, within the description. So before we close out, I want to do just some quick deep breathing, and then have you share any ahas or highlights, from, this experience, what this was like for you, and then any sense of source of empowerment that you would like to to share with others. So let's take 3 nice deep belly breaths, please.
Okay.
Okay, so let's hear just anything that you want to share about how was this experience for you? Any ahas, highlights, or just anything you found interesting, and then just what you would love to encourage or empower others with.
I think what this demonstrates is how when you start and you're open-minded about where things are going to go, that you've got an initial structure, but you're not clinging on to it, and that becomes the be-all and end-all. That so much opens up. And I think one of the things for many people, and to some extent was true for me, although I think in other contexts not so much, is that very often we want the familiarity and the safety of having a structure, and then we stick to it and almost become blinkered by the structure. And I like a structure, but it's using that as the starting point, and then having the fearlessness, the courage to allow it to just take it where it will take you.
Divine editing is what I call it. We have a tentative
much more eloquent than
yeah.
But I think one of the things that people find hard is confusion.
Yeah.
And they start to feel confused, and so they close things down. And what I think is really interesting is, out of the initial confusion, if you stick with it and you allow yourself to, well, it helps having a great mentor. There's no doubt about that. But also allowing yourself to have the freedom to just follow the line, but that it takes you, the journey, the pathway, that the confusion will eventually clear, and out of that confusion comes creativity.
Yes, greater clarity for that creativity.
And clarity. So I think that for me is perhaps one of the big lessons that, somebody we've been going for 3.5 hours, somebody who's not used to this will wonder how, you started with 2 strands and you didn't follow it in a linear fashion. That's what I'm used to. But actually the richness has come from being able to weave through the agenda and to open up what came. So that's my big aha for people. And I suppose what I'd like to leave people with is, if you've been drawn to this, you've been drawn to this for a reason. And what I would say to you is, take the essence of this and allow it to be a springboard for you to move forward. There is so much richness in this, and if you need help finding your way through it, then reach out. The books are there. There are lots of opportunities there. You don't have to do it in isolation. But what is important is that you have to recognize that in order to be the best version of yourself, it is a dynamic thing. You're never the best of yourself and it's static. It's a growing, expanding part of your development. And I would say embrace it, and embrace it now. Take the opportunity is being offered to you, and grab it with both hands, because the magic will come out of what you do with it, and how you become, how you be with it.
Yes. Oh, that was beautiful. That was perfect.
Thank you.
Nothing more to be said there. I tell you, that was amazing. And thank you so much again. Like I said, I can cease to sing the praises of you and commend your leadership example, and especially to the empathic community during this time, to be showing up continuously the way that you do, and ready to go to the next level, but also serve others at the highest level and just continue your empowerment and evolution. So thank you. I can't thank you enough for allowing this process to be shared with others. And of course, it's been to my total delight to facilitate it.
Well, and my thanks to you for the opportunity. It's a real privilege, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
You're most welcome. You know how I feel about you. I just love you, love you, love you for sure. And so to sort of conclude this session here, one of the things that I want to say is a closing sense of empowerment too, is to take everything, of course, that Gina definitely beautifully stated at the close of this, and really get present with what she said, because there's so much to unpack, even from that which she clarified, and then be able to sit with this whole process and go back and through this, rinse and repeat it, look at this as many times as you need to, and let it be the triggers and the prompts for you that stimulate something. And as she mentioned, the resources and everything are available, and some of you are at different levels, and you may not necessarily be ready to engage in a full process of what she's putting together, and it may be just the one step that you do, one book, 2 books, or just however. And again, it's here, and you just, whatever ways are aligned for you to participate at any level, just find that true alignment and allow those codes to start unlocking for you, because they will, through this process of the intentional journaling aspect. So always remember that your divine destiny isn't found in the stars or in the cards. It is in your life codes. And with that, Gina and I are going to wish you well, and ultimately stay blessed.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.